Masterclasses today is Neil Everatt. Now, Neil is a long-standing, as in since we set 10 by 10 up, supporter of 10 by 10. So we're incredibly grateful to him. Neil is the founder of Solenity, which used to be called, was it Software Europe?
Software Europe. Actually, a slight correction there. I wasn't the founder, but I'll cover that when we get going, if that's okay.
And as I mentioned in the intro this morning, really interesting timing for a discussion with Neil. So I booked Neil to do this slot about 4 or 5 weeks ago, Neil. And Neil was like, "Yeah, of course, mate, no problem. Yeah, you know me, I'll always rock up." And kind of communication with Neil is normally it's instant. You send him a message, you get an instant reply confirming, and it's like, didn't hear for 2 or 3 days. I think, okay, well, you know, he's busy. Don't want to prod. He's doing us a favor. And then it turns out I'm sitting on Twitter, I think it was last Friday, and some news popped up on Twitter that says Neil Everatt's just sold his business. And you think, that explains a lot. That answers why the guy's not been his usual, because Neil's a very tech savvy guy.
You're very kind.
And he'll you know, he has half a dozen gadgets in his hand at any one time, and you message him and you'd almost get a response. So we are incredibly grateful to Neil.
Always pushing.
Giving up yet more of his time in what must be the busiest period of his life. Well, I suspect actually 3 or 4 weeks ago was the busiest period. But yeah, great timing. So thank you, Neil. So I misquoted myself and said that you're the founder of Solenity or Software Europe. And why don't you tell us, because I'm always intrigued, because you don't have a tech background. You don't have a particular, I don't think it would be a disservice to say you don't have a particularly academic background.
Not at all.
How did you?
I do have a CSC in woodwork, Master Russell.
Well, I don't want to put your thunder with that. How did you become the founder, or sorry, the MD, the CEO of a really successful software company in Lincoln? Talk us through the journey from the start.
Really simple, and I'm not joking about the CSE in woodwork, guys. That is what I acquired when I was at secondary school, and I left school with absolutely no idea what to do, as many students do. And I found myself going through some good jobs. But one of the things I learned really quickly was that if you put the effort in, you tend to get recognised, and that recognition is then passed on, kind of thing. And I got into playing rugby, and I met the founder of Solenity, or Software Europe as it was at the time, but we'll call it Solenity going forward. And the guy was called Peter Burlow. When we got talking, and he asked if I'd like to join his company as his second salesperson in a company of 4 people, and I duly did that. But I got bored quite quickly and left, and came back and left, and came back and left. But we stayed in contact, and exactly 12 years ago, I received an email from the founder saying he wanted to retire. Would I be interested in running the company for him? And it's one of those situations. I was well paid for working for an American company, traveling around the world, really nice, secure job. And then this guy offers me the chance to run a company that was only 17 people in size, and take a risk on that real secure job working for the American organization. So I decided within 10 seconds that that's what I was going to do. But you never tell your wife or your partner that. You have to pretend and that you're thinking it through to give some logic. 17 people at the time. We've grown to nearly 80 by the time we came to acquisition. So that was what we did. But it was clear to me that if I'm just going to do all the work, I'd like to have some equity in that business. And so we started talking to the founders shortly after they left about bringing some equity over, which started very slowly and continued very slowly. So it wasn't fast enough for my liking. So we then went out and did what's called an MBO, a management buyout, which essentially allowed us to fund the purchase of all the stock and shares of the founders. And that put us then in a total control position. I'm sure you guys running your business know how important that is, that you need to be able to make the decisions. Sometimes they're a bit rash, sometimes they're a bit crazy, but they're your decisions. Sometimes they're from the heart, sometimes they're the gut, and all that kind of stuff. But that allowed us then to get quite innovative. We started investing in new technologies in the cloud, on the internet, and that essentially is where that led us to. And as Russell pointed out, of course, I love what I do. I have Russell asked me off camera there, what's my plans when this is all over, and I said to him, and I mean this, probably on day 1 I might take a few days holiday, and day 2 I'll probably go to PC World and buy a new laptop and start doing something else. But to long story short, 9 weeks ago, tell the truth. 9 weeks ago, I took a phone call from a large software organization asking if we were interested in being acquired. And as is the CEO's, the owner's job, I represent the shareholders, and it was my job to go, we might be, let's see what you're talking about. And that's when the process kicks off. You sign a letter of intent, and your law firm opens a virtual data room for you, and then you start uploading all your documentation. And there's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to hide. My good advice for you guys is, I'm sure at some point you'll want to exit your company. Make sure your records are really solid. Unfortunately, we're in a good shape, but there's still some holes. But every single contract, if you get a chance, every time you sign something, digitize it and record it, because it makes life so much easier when they want to come and have a look through your books. And the funny thing is, it feels a bit awkward, because you've got this third-party company, so this company who actually is a competitor of yours is now going through all of your files, all of your contracts, all of your customer information. But it worked out okay. And truth of the matter is, we were expecting any time during the process that they'll ring up and go, we're not offering you X, we've found something and we're going to offer you a little less than X, and so on. And they would do this nibbling thing. But it didn't happen. And we got to Thursday about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The lawyers said we could be on for signing tonight, which again, set your expectations. When a lawyer says tonight, they're probably tomorrow morning, in the really early hours of the morning. And sure enough, we were eventually at final stages, still doing Zoom video calls with lawyers at sort of late in the evening on Thursday. But at 1:20 a.m., we all signed the agreement. And again, if you don't know, you can sign the agreement. It's a bit like buying a house. You sign a contract that says, yes, you can buy all my shares for this value, but we'll complete in the morning. And sure enough, we completed at 10 o'clock in the morning with press coverage time to go a little later on. And I will tell you the truth, I can't tell the exact numbers, but that event created a number of multimillionaires overnight. And so I have some very happy colleagues and friends at the moment who are very pleased with the situation. And so that is kind of the story of Solinity, and that's where we are today. I'm hanging around for at least 18 months. We're doing what's called an earn-out. So we've been paid 95% of the cash up front, with 5% to follow based on the results for the next 18 months. And it's certainly worth hanging around for that bit as well. Plus, like I said to you, I'd get bored if I didn't do something. So I hope that kind of covers it okay, Russell.
Yeah, really interesting. And I mean, you've touched on a few points, some of which we'll go back over. But the one I particularly like, bearing in mind the stage that our guys are at, and I'd echo it, having supported a number of businesses through the sale process, is the quality of the record keeping.
Yeah.
And the certainty that you know what you've got, and that you know what you don't know. How important, this is more of personal interest really, but how important were the staff contracts in there? Because I've seen a few business purchases fall through because the key staff upon which the business is reliant weren't locked in properly.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. What we did in the early, so when we did the management buyout, I'll be honest with you, I took the lion's share of all the shares, thinking that I would like to map out who I'd like to give shares to. And so that over the 4 or 5 years, I started gifting shares out to the key players in the organization. So to answer your question, Russell, we had some colleagues that were on 3-month contracts, at least notice periods. And we had some that were so tied in because they had shares that they would be very relieved and happy when an event happened. So it was kind of a double approach really. But you're absolutely right with the record keeping. There is no hiding. They will want to know everything and the accuracy of everything. So I say, if you start now early, it's a really good place to be.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So you're not a traditional startup, and in that you didn't get off your backside and found the business, but you came into the business, engineered or took advantage of the opportunity for an MBO. What was your key motivating factor to wanting to be kind of king of all you survey?
Oh, that's a really good question, Russell. I'm not going to say money, because it's not about money and what you get at the end of it. It's actually what you achieve. It's the satisfaction, isn't it? It's the buzz you get when you launch your first app and it goes live on the App Store. I mean, I didn't quite cry, but I know our first app, which was launched 7 years ago, when it goes up onto the App Store and you can see people downloading it and using it, what kind of buzz do you get out of that moment? So it's everything. It's not just cash. It is the ability to deliver something new, save tons and tons of money. We've saved the NHS millions of pounds over the years. There's not many people who can say that. So that's the key driver for me. And while Solinity wasn't a startup, the subsequent colleague box company was a startup, which is a slightly different story. Which
We'll come on to colleague box in a minute, if I may. So going back to Solinity, so you came into Solinity with a sales background.
Yep.
As people will have learnt by now, if they didn't already know, you've got the gift of the gab. You can, you know how to build relationships and very good.
Right.
Did you have all of the skill set you needed to run a business? Did you have mentors? Did you have external support? How valuable were they? Where did you get them from?
Absolutely clueless, mate, and I'm not being funny. So I walked into the office on day one with the founder sat in the office, and I went in there and said to him, right, I'm here. What are we doing, a 3-month kind of handover? And I'm not lying to you. He said, no, I'm leaving now, but you can call me on the phone if you want. And that was probably the best thing ever to do, because we needed a clean break. His style was not my style and all that kind of nice stuff. So in terms of mentors, we had a financial director that didn't understand finance very well, and me as well. So we had lots and lots of holes, but we did rely on local organizations here in Lincoln, for example, some of the accountants companies. Yep. They'd charge you, but in some cases you want that security of having someone to check you over. No, and do you know what I wanted to? One of the things was when we arrived here with 17 people, what nobody ever knew was I'd never managed a single person before when I arrived. I'd been a sales guy on the road doing my sales stuff. So you sit there and you think, okay, so how do I manage people? And one of the things that I was always keen on looking back on was some of my experiences. And I'm sure we can all relate to this, but I had some really good managers and I had some really truly awful managers. And I knew which version motivated me, and I took that model and promoted that. And that's why we've done an awful lot, locally supporting the schools. My colleagues have their birthday off. We have free fruit around the office. All those kind of nice things we've been doing for a long time, because that little investment in people really comes back to help you in the future.
So interesting. So how has your staff retention been then compared to your peers, your competitors? You've alluded to some of the kind of softer benefits that you get, and most of us in and around Lincoln know about those, because everyone else says, well, why haven't we got fruit?
Yeah.
Why can't I have my birthday off?
Yeah.
It's, what's the commercial payback been like on that?
Huge. I mean, your staff churn is, your employee churn is very, very low. People want to work for you. They want to input. They don't mind working till 7 at night if they have to. And we're not slave drivers here, far from it. But you get that loyalty and that commitment. And it's really hard because I see a lot of the old-fashioned type of businesses that think they have to drive people. Almost, you clock in at 9, you clock out at 5. And it's quite funny. As soon as you drop the guard and say to people, just be yourself. If you want to be a few minutes late at 9 o'clock, I don't care. If you want to go and do a doctor's appointment at 3 o'clock, just do it. Don't ask me about it. And eventually, over time, people go, wow, actually, I really value this. And so that's what we found is incredible loyalty. And to be honest with you, nobody knew about this transaction that I just mentioned about the acquisition. And when I did announce it to the whole company, about 80 people, I think, or so, we had some people crying because they thought it was kind of the end of what they've been through. You know what I mean? And we had to reassure them that the new organization was going to be okay as well, and that kind of stuff. So kind of knew or felt that we got it right.
So that's interesting, because you're in a really cutthroat industry for staff, employees, particularly the developer side. Developers, they graduate, they get a couple of years under their belt, and they go, right, who's going to offer me another 10 grand or 20 grand or 30 grand? And has, presumably you've had to keep pace salary wise as well as some of the
absolutely right. I mean, in the early days when we were a very small company, you can't be paying these huge salaries. You had to grab the unique talent that was coming out of schools, and which is part of our schools program. Yep. And then you could educate them. And unfortunately, then of course, they as they get better and better, the expectations are that they have a salary that equals what they're worth, and that's absolutely fine with that. But as a company doesn't grow in the same proportions, you did find in the early days a bit of churn of people. As you get larger and larger and larger, that gets less of a problem. And it is a problem in Lincoln and Lincolnshire. We're not churning out as much Texas skills as I think we should do, just my opinion. But there is big holes there. So you find that we're fighting each other with ourselves, with Streets Heaver, with the guys out at Saxelby. We're always borrowing off people, and it's a bit of a churn rather than a new influx. So our approach was always to get into the schools early, pluck out that talent that you could see, and see if we can bring it through. And it's worked really well. We've got 2 guys now with us who came straight out of Robert Patterson School here in Lincoln, who are in key roles, and both are managing now, actually, after being here only 2 years. So you can do it. Yeah.
So you mentioned Colleagues Box, and I Colleague Box is a fantastic story. And I knew before Colleague Box that you supported your teams to explore alternative avenues for the business. So we've met offline with a colleague of yours about a business idea that he'd come up with, and we kind of batted it around. And then, so during the peak of lockdown, Colleague Box was spawned and has now got a life of its own, an identity of its own. It's even got its own flipping building.
Phenomenal
Already. So tell us the Colleague Box story.
It was week 2, was about April time, early April, week 2 of lockdown, and I was sat in the conservatory at home. And as I've already mentioned, I find motivating colleagues really important, and keeping in touch with them equally so. It was getting more difficult. Whilst Zoom and Teams is great, it's still not that physical bond that you get. So I was trying to find a way of getting a little gift to everybody, and I went onto Amazon and I thought, how can I get 80 people's names and addresses under GDPR rules into this product and maybe send out some gift cards? And it wasn't easy. And just like what you guys are doing, have done, is you found a problem, and I felt this wasn't solved very well. There were some box companies out there, but it wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted a more personalized touch. So the truth of the matter is, it was about 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and I sent a text to my son, who was living at home at the time. Bearing in mind it's Saturday morning, so I sent a text at 9 o'clock saying, I think I might have an idea here.
When you wake up in 4 hours time.
3 a.m. So 3 p.m. He comes downstairs, what do you want? And I'd written out the idea on the whiteboard, and I said, what do you think of it? And let's be honest, he's a 19-year-old, so he's going to be a bit stroppy, but he actually said, yeah, I think that could work, So he and I gathered boxes and all kinds of things. We bought some top trumps cards, and we bought some tea bags, and we threw them into this box and said, that's a colleague box. And so it's not quite enough. We wanted it personalized. So then we decided we'd have a design where you could write a personal note on the inside of the box. We printed out from Neil or whatever. And I was about to send them all out to every single one of our colleagues. It was meant just internally to begin with. And what I thought I'd do is I'd send a box to my colleague, Deborah Sawnby, who's my sales and marketing director. I just put it through a door and I said, what do you think? And she rang me and she said, it's pathetic. Looking back on it, it was a horrible box. She says, well, I don't want a pack of top trumps. And I thought, well, I don't know. I wouldn't mind them. But the point was, what came out of that was, while she was critical, she came back with some positive feedback on that. And so we kind of realized that this might be a good idea. However, one of the things I've learned about myself is I'm pretty good at starting things. I'm pretty crap at finishing them. And so because of the furlough situation in the company, I had 2 people on furlough. I said to them, why don't you try this business and see how it goes and run it for us? And that was Adam and Natalie Bamford. And they took it from their house to their own trade building now in Derby. And unbelievably, after 5 months, the product's turned over £1 million, and the margins are kind of up there. So they've now gone full time onto that, and just blown away. Every time a ring in me tells me they're doing more and more on volume, and I've stayed away from it, just let them run it. And we've decided to split the shares in accordance with the workload that's going on here, so they should be quite happy about that as well. So I hope, and maybe in 2-3 years time, we can have another conversation about exiting a colleague box business as well, Russell.
So fantastic. So you got some feedback from Deborah.
Yeah.
Best line ever. This is pathetic. almost as honest as some of the people who work with me. What else did you learn during that kind of uber fast, I'm guessing probably quite lean startup phase?
Yeah, when we did,
wouldn't have thrown £500,000 at it and said go and play.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't. We borrowed some. In fact, we put it on my credit card to begin with. But I will confess to you here, I put it on my credit card, but I felt I had at least the backing of a business account if anything didn't go wrong. But it was nonetheless. I mean, all the debts have been repaid now. That anything they took out of the company is all gone. The learning was. I don't know. I suppose it's the excitement, like what you guys have found. You found something that's right. And we challenged ourselves a number of times by doing that, let's fail early if it's going to fail, guys. Is it going to fail or is it going to work? And we kept checking. And every time, what we've learned really quickly was that if you have this box that goes out to colleagues from somebody nice in your company, you like to tweet about it, or you put it on Facebook, or you put it on LinkedIn. And then people like it again. So you've got this self-growing kind of social media model that does all the advertising for you. And I suppose my response to that would be, if you guys get that chance to promote your technologies through the social media channels, I absolutely would urge you to do that. Blatant sales is kind of tough, like buy this, get one free. But people love little stories about the boxes, and you'll see now on Colliebox on Twitter, they're talking about the Christmas box that's coming, and they're doing the Halloween box and all that kind of stuff. So learned a lot, and it was fun to do a startup because I hadn't done that. I'd just done the coming in at a medium state, if you like.
So just for the avoidance of doubt, it's not called Halloween anymore. It's called My Birthday.
Of course, I saw that.
Every year, it's my birthday.
Oh, is it?
But we're banned from calling it Halloween in this house.
Yeah.
it's just known as Dad's birthday. And
Good.
so okay, so you went through this, and it's a kind of passion of mine. Is this kind of fail early, fail fast, just the Nike just do it model.
Yeah.
How imperfect was version 1, version 2?
Yeah, they've come a long way. Version 1 was simply one box on a website. Version 2, 3, and 4 became multiple choice boxes with non-alcoholic versions, with people who don't like chocolate, all these combos. The key to it was getting the website right, because people don't want to interact with people anymore. It sounds really weird, but if they want to buy 10 boxes, they just want to say, I want 10 boxes, and this is the message I want, and these are the 10 names and addresses. So getting the data security right was really important, because we're uploading names and addresses, so we're under GDPR rules. But getting the options and the website clean and easy to click was great. But we also found another issue. So we've got one organization that ordered 22,000 boxes in one go. They weren't going to do that. They weren't going to do that for the website. So there was a model where you could bespoke it a little bit, and you'd obviously take phone calls. And the good thing for us is both Adam and Natalie are really nice people. You know, call them salespeople if you want, but they're really nice people. They want to help. So we've got this multiple model where we're dealing with the lower end volumes, maybe up to 400 or 500 boxes at a time, and they've got this higher end model where you're looking at 20,000 boxes at a time, or slightly lower. And that was important for us as well. So we learned a lot about the consumer experience. I can't say I got that involved here, but we've got some cool guys on board who do the SEO stuff for us, and we're looking at how we improve that every time. And we spend a bit of money on Google Ads as well, to try and capture the market. And I think the most flattering thing, I'm sure you guys will see the same, the most flattering thing is when you start to see other startups trying to follow your model. And I know the time and energy that's gone into that, so I wouldn't dismiss them, but equally I know that we are in a good position and far advanced with any competitor.
So would you say with hindsight that getting it to market quickly was more important than getting it 100% perfect?
100%, absolutely. Absolutely. We wanted to test it, and we couldn't test it by waiting for the perfect version. And I think that's important, because I don't know what your characteristics are, but I've got people on my team here that are perfectionists and probably would never let anything go out ever, unless, you know, it'd gone through 2 years of testing. And then I've got other people that go, let's just bang it out there, which is probably more in my remit, to be honest with you. But we wanted early responses, and we got it. And even the early boxes that weren't that great were well received, and they were doing what we thought they would do, which is push through social media channels. So yeah, absolutely.
So as I'm assuming your role in Colliebox is a kind of finding an angel type, you know, not day-to-day interaction, but just, you know, here's a bit of structure, here's a bit of support if you need it, here's a bank account to blow.
Yeah.
What were your personal expectations?
Do you know, I knew when my son and I had to go at the first boxes, despite us trying really hard, we realized it wasn't for us. We liked the idea, but we didn't. I mean, I can remember now looking at these 80 odd boxes laid out on the lounge floor, and my wife going, what the hell are you doing, idiots? And I suppose at that point, the idea was, well, hang on a minute. I've got some guys on furlough who could make this work for us, and let's see how it goes. I suppose I thought it would be great. It would be a very nice cottage business, a small little industry. But it really, early on, when we started getting these orders for thousands at a time, you begin to realize that lots of companies want to stay in touch with their employees now, and they can't do that as easy as they used to be able to do. And not all like that, but a lot of companies want to keep on reminding colleagues that we do care about you. And this was one way of doing it. So our expectations have gone from being a cottagey type small business right through to being what I'd like to think is a multi-million-pound operation. And like I say, we've turned $1 million already after 5 months. So I don't see a reason why that won't continue well into next year. And even with COVID and maybe with with this coming back to work maybe in 12 months' time, I still think now the model's kind of workable.
Okay, it's interesting. So that was going to be one of my questions. How reliant do you think you are on furlough and this kind of distant relation?
Yeah, I suspect there will be some change, but I think the companies I'm dealing with now, most of us have said, why the hell have we not done this remote working before? Why are we thinking about even coming back into offices? And I think there will be some that will say you've got to be here. Fair enough, I get that. But I think a lot more now will be thinking the bigger picture of working from home.
Yeah, I mean, I've got friends who work for some of the big city banks, the big top 4 accountancy firms, people like that, and they're like, yeah, well, we might let a quarter of you back in 2021 sometime.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing the same.
Okay, so sorry, I'm going to just track back a little. So you talked about, you had this idea, and you've got this couple, Adam and Natalie, who are on furlough. Was that happenstance that they were the right character, the right skill set, the right emotional drive, and the idea, or was it, this is a good idea that would fit?
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of both. I knew Adam very, very well. I've worked with him for 5-6 years. Actually, his wife I didn't know so well, but I just knew they were genuine people, and they were the only option really, because we didn't have many on furlough, and I wanted someone I could trust. And it was one of those businesses you probably needed someone really close to you in the early stages to get it going, because it was going to be tough. And so husband and wife team kind of made sense. Probably got its negatives as well. So that's the kind of model we took. And then I spoke to Adam only a few weeks ago about that moment when I said to him, would you want to run this? And he admitted that at the time he wasn't kind of blown away by it, but he said, I'm going to give it a go. And then he said, honestly, though, within a week, I was realized this is a huge potential. And that's the model we took. So Adam and Natalie have fitted in perfectly. If you get to see them, they've been on the BBC News. They're kind of really, really interview friendly. They are determined. They're social media savvy. All those nice. They're the perfect package, and the perfect people to have the right shares for that as well. So, and that was
but a loss to Solinity.
Yeah, but the timing's pretty good again, because we've been acquired now, so it's kind of they resigned on the Friday the 1st. One of them did have shares in the company, so they got some nice little payoff out of that, and they've gone off and done that now. But we've managed to put in another guy to keep on the systems running that Adam was looking at as well. So yeah,
you've been able to backfill quite
yeah, absolutely.
And knowing you, that'd have been an internal promotion, and
yeah, absolutely,
make room. So we've got ultimately on this program, we've got 12 mostly early stage businesses, the usual 10 by 10 blend of pre-starts to people who've been around for a while, who may now need to kind of rethink or reposition. What are your top tips for early stage businesses in today's environment?
Like I said, number one, get your record keeping absolutely bang on. Really, really important, as you'll learn. Don't be afraid to get the right people, and that's really obvious, but get the right people. And what tends to happen is then they start looking. Don't be afraid to pay those people the right kind of money to keep them. The cost of change can be horrendous at times, and just because someone's going to leave you for another £1,000 from Johnny whoever, it can be a bad move. And sometimes we make those decisions emotionally when they actually should be logical decisions that actually we can reward more. Equally, if someone's decided to leave you, then and they've not changed their mind, then obviously just let them go and move on. Cash. You'll hear this every single time from people like myself, but cash is absolutely everything. And don't be afraid to dig down on that. And what we would do is cash flow ahead as much as we could. It's probably easy in our world because I have recurring revenues, but we could cash flow forecast up to 2 years in advance. And that was a luxury. I know that, and not everybody can do that, but it gave us an insight to what the business was looking like. And it gave us early warnings as well. Obviously, you can go to the bank and say, actually, I can see a blip in September. I'm going to need 20 grand to cover the wages, but I can come back out again because I can show you what's going to happen. So cash flow forecasting, really, really important for me. I suppose the other one that I learned is that there's no way I'm good at very, very few things, but I'm not bad at keeping people together. So get some good skills around you that fill the gaps. There was many of mine. There was finance I didn't fully understand. I didn't know what EBITDA meant until only very recently. Not quite true, but you know what I mean. Though it was things that other people worried about EBITDA. And you're doing what you're doing. You're looking for opportunities. Partnerships can be quite good. Promotional partnerships as well, which have worked for us. And I suppose back to that old thing again, Russell, which was fail fast if you're going to fail, and move on and keep challenging yourself. If it's not going to work, it sounds awful, but if it's not going to work, don't keep on trying to throw money at it. But presumably you guys have gone through a number of those phases already. So
it's interesting. So you and I run businesses that are poles apart in terms of sector, size, what we do, how we do it. But interestingly, so I've been on this morning's workshop, and every 20 minutes or so, I'd knock the camera off so that people can't actually see what I'm really doing. And what I've been doing this morning is cash flow forecasting us through to the end of our financial year at the end of March. So I know I've got this coming in, and I know every month I've got these 2 rents going out and all these salary costs. And how are we looking? Yeah, okay, we're looking good. This project, I might need to just build this project a little bit earlier than usual because I need that. And the other thing that I find is an absolute godsend now for business is this thing. I mean, you are the tech giant, but the best thing for my business is online banking.
Yeah.
Because literally before I get out of bed at 5:30, 6 in the morning, I'll log on to the bank account and say, right,
see what's come in.
Who's paid us today? Who have we paid today? What's today's cash situation looking like?
And why haven't they been paid as well? And that's probably another one, isn't it? Terms, cash payment terms. We're kind of lucky because we could disconnect people if they didn't pay and they couldn't use our systems, which is a luxury. But but we have seen organisations that have taken weeks and weeks and weeks to pay, and I think it's shocking. There's not a lot you can do about it other than keep complaining about it. But equally, you want them as customers. So it's a fine balance of hassling but getting paid. And I don't have a perfect answer for that. Each one's different as far as I can see.
A lot of it, I think, is about relationships.
Yeah.
So we've just started a piece of work for the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. Sounds really sexy, but the councils in the Leeds City region. I sent them an invoice last Friday. The cash was in the bank this morning.
Fantastic.
But you know what I did? As I sent them a nice little email and said, if Carlsberg made customers, you would be the best. Just wanted to say thanks for the prompt payment. Money's in the bank. And I got 4, because it went to 4 different people. Got 4 really lovely emails back saying, so nice that you said thank you. Nobody ever says, nobody ever appreciates what we do. And you think, right, there's a happy client.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
The quality of work we might deliver, at least they've been paid. So we talk generically, or you talk generically about tips for early stage businesses. What's your take? Because you're a savvy guy. What's your take on what our business is? And they're all in different sectors, as we rehearsed off camera. What could they do to position themselves for when COVID is over, or to see them through this kind of what we hope will be a very short-term phase?
I hope so too, and and then indications would suggest that it might be a bit longer than we probably hoped for. But the reality is, this is where we are into it, and I can't speak for every single one of your business. What we did here was we did a couple of plans. We identified the risk clients, those that would be impacted by COVID, as in they couldn't produce what they should produce. The hospitality sector is a good one. We've got quite a number of organisations like Mitchell and Butler which use our services. So we identified those guys at high risk, and sure enough, we saw a substantial decline in the services they were using from us. So we made sure that the account management team, so luxury, hopefully you'll get, but the account management team here were knocking on the doors of all those hospitality customers really early on, saying, what can we do to support you? And therefore, what can you do to support us? So don't be afraid to go out there and talk to your customers about COVID-19 and what's going to happen. I hate to rear the bigger word as well, but we've got Brexit to contend with as well in January, and whatever that might look like. So we created a second list, which is those that are at risk from Brexit and the slowdown of trade across the borders should that happen. I know Brexit's political. I'm not trying to be political. I'm just trying to be realistic about what the situation is going to be. So we're looking at COVID, we're looking at Brexit, excuse me, and identifying those risks and what can we do about it. And the brutal truth is, Russell, that we've created a list with that worst case scenario list. If all those customers failed in those 2 scenarios, if half failed, a quarter failed, and so on, so we can actually track it as far as we can to see, how things are going to go, kind of thing. Preparing wise, though, I mean, it's that time to be innovative and creative, isn't it? To go out there and find what is my service going to do for the COVID world, pre or post COVID world. What can I offer to organisations that are now going to be recovering? Because we probably will go through a small decline in the economy, but I do feel that maybe just my view that it's going to spike up a lot quicker, and not like the old in 2008 where we had the very slow decline of the financing banking sector and a slow recovery. This looks like it's going to be a fast fall and hopefully a fast recovery. So what can you do to be at that point where fast recovery, where companies are suddenly going to be short of staff potentially, are suddenly going to be short of services and products and so on. And so, what can you do in your sector, and keep an eye out for that.
Interesting. So that chimes really well with this morning's session, which was largely around planning.
Yeah.
Short term, medium term. We talked about a 5-year plan going back to a 1-year plan, a 90-day plan, a 30-day plan, and then a tomorrow morning plan. And I think that's really important. I think the other thing to say is yes, COVID's had a really negative effect on everybody personally. It's had a really positive effect on a lot of businesses.
Yes.
A lot of the clients that we work with in Lincolnshire, I'd say probably 80% of them are struggling, but 20% of them are doing really, really well. Because they've been, well, there's a guy just around the corner from you, isn't there, who's a printing company who's doing phenomenally well as a result.
Mr. YPP.
Yes. Indeed. But you know, his turnover has increased sevenfold as a result of COVID, but not as a result of COVID, as a result of the entrepreneurial attitude.
Yeah, it's good.
An opportunity caused by COVID and to exploit it. And I think it's having that. There's a lot to be said, I think, Neil, for an entrepreneurial mindset, and that's why I wanted to get you in early on this masterclass series, because you have that kind of spot on opportunity, do something about it.
Yeah, you can't call yourself an entrepreneur, Russell, can you? That's somebody else that somebody calls you.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean?
But call yourself an expert either. But
correct. That's my feeling too.
Unless you're bidding for public sector work.
And that's the interesting thing. I mean, you mentioned there about the printers around the corner. So we're buying stuff for Colleague Box from that company with the grand intent of always being to try and buy locally. And again, this is an example of how you can partner up with other people to service each other, if you like. So that's really, really good. He sent me a text yesterday, the guy just saying congratulations on your sale and thanks for that large order. So it's a win-win situation for us. So
yeah, brilliant. So a question from one of our gang. And she won't mind me naming her because she's the only one who's going to be developing an app. And do you have any recommendations for an app developer that you've used and are happy to pass on? If so, we'll do it via email, I guess, rather than publicly name.
No. The one bit of advice I probably would suggest to you, there are some good independent companies out there that will do apps, but I don't want to spook you, but apps, you'll build version 1 and you want version 2, 3, and 4. So prepare your financial planning for that kind of situation. Also, if you're not very technically savvy, there's nothing wrong with that. There are some good trusted organizations out there that will certainly help you along the way. And I do have one, Russell, which I'll send you an email to. I didn't use them myself, but one of our products that we acquired did use them, and they seem to be quite honest and genuine and reasonably priced as well. If you think about outsourcing it outside the UK, my experience of outsourcing is challenging, to say the least, with time differences, cultural differences, and so on. So I'd definitely try and keep it local, keep it UK based.
Brilliant. So we talked off camera, and then you mentioned early on, you'll probably, well, you've got your 18-month earnout. During that time, you're going to go and buy a laptop and come up with a new idea, a new something. You are never going to retire because you're not that.
Get bored.
You're not that personality. What's the next? Not necessarily the next big thing for Neil, but what's the next big opportunity in the marketplace?
Russell, I've been so focused on doing this. I don't know. I'm very, very big on mobile technology, and like you are, and I've kind of there's huge opportunities for that, I think, around the corner for us for doing remote working. And I came into this kind of, if you can see behind me, I've got a gadget museum behind me, which got loads of old mobile phones. Russell, you've seen them. Yeah, and that was my world, was BT mobile comms, and I'm excited about what we can do in that world there. More remote working, mobilization. So I think that's where I'm going to be looking at, is mobilization of stuff.
Well, that's good for at least 2 of our audience. So
it's good.
James and James, you better be nodding and clapping and going straight to the bank this afternoon. Right. Has anybody got any urgent questions before we let Neil get off to the pub? I'm not. Did I say pub? I meant to the office.
Wish.
Finishes. You'll be there later. Well, no, the Jews house, as we said.
Jews, yeah. Someone's got to do it.
A fine Lincoln venue. Has anybody got any burning questions? Let me just scroll the right way down this chat. Sorry,
yeah, no, like I see a question there. Actually, the answer is yes. You can, with pleasure, contact me.
Yeah.
Feel free to.
Anastasia. See, now there's me thinking that you were just being psychic and preempting the answers to the questions, particularly the ones that Lee put up. And it seemed every time Lee because actually he sent them to me privately.
So there you go, you see.
So there were 2 questions that came in from Lee that I was just about to ask, and then you answered it. So I've replied to him privately saying, yep, done that one.
Maybe that's a skill you need as well, then maybe telepathic.
Or you've learned how to hack Zoom.
No, not quite. No.
Probably much more likely. Let me take you off speaker view so I can see the audience. Has anybody got any questions for Neil? Now, James, you're going to hook up with Neil separately because you have the distinct good fortune for having Neil as your mentor.
Very much so. Great to meet you, Neil.
And you guys.
It's engineered that way. Almost.
Sorry I haven't been in touch yet, James, but the path's clearing now, so we can get back to normal.
Niels, your passion is contagious.
Thank you. It's good to hear.
Absolutely. Anybody else got anything else? Sorry, I'm having to look around the screen and I'm looking at contented faces. Lee's kind of waving.
Hi, Lee. All right.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you, mate.
Do you plan and set goals for yourself when you had that idea? Did you say, right, okay, let's funnel it down. I need to do this, 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 and this, and set yourself those goals? Or did you just go, as you said, you're one of those guys, just let's get it out there? Or as we're all sort of training in, we're sort of having this guidance to say, let's do it in a pragmatic way. Do you do that? Do you set yourself those goals to say, okay?
You can tell by my body language what I'm going to say. Yeah. The truth is, I mean, the college box example was that I did map out on the whiteboard what I felt that the thing could look like and the experience I wanted from it. And I wanted people to feel like when they open their Apple iPhone and it looks beautiful, that was the theory behind it, which obviously didn't work the first time around. So the truth is, Lee, probably at a very high level, you've got an idea where you want to go. Do I sit down with a business plan? In this business for us, for technology, and probably the same, I wrote a business plan when I first came here thinking that's what you had to do. But I found myself tearing them up and starting again every few weeks because the world was moving so fast and technology moving so fast. So the truthful answer is I tend to do more of this is where I think we're going to go, guys, and play it by ear rather than do the formality. I'm not suggesting the formality is not a bad thing, by the way. I think it probably is for those that can work with that model, but I'm not so good at that kind of thing.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
I think the answer from my part is you've got to be true to your own personality. If your personality is a wing it personality, then wing it. If you're not confident with that, then get yourself somebody who's got some complementary skill. Yeah, non-winger, or a Michelle, as it's known in my business.
That's exactly right. And that's back to this thing about having good records again. I'm sure in the early days, I could have easily signed a contract and put it in a drawer, but we had people working with us said, no, I'm going to get that contract. I'm going to scan it in. So we're in a good place to have everything digitally assigned at the right time. So yeah.
Yeah, really, really helpful. Really helpful. Any more for any more?
Guys, it's lovely to meet you. I wish you all the best. It's a fun journey.
Absolutely, it is. And can I just thank you once again on behalf of everybody, Neil, for giving me your time, your insights, your humor, your enthusiasm. It's all very, very gratefully received. And if I was so minded, I'd be sending all of our mentors a colleague box. But as one of them is one of the founders of colleague box, kind of spoils it. The last one of these things we ran, we sent everybody a bottle of Lincolnshire's gin. So we'll come up with an alternative this time. Might be rum, actually.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Really, and just enjoy the journey. Really, it's fun. You'll have some low moments and you'll have some amazing moments, and the amazing moments do come at the right time often. So enjoy. Other than that, thank you, Russell, for the invitation. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, Neil.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. We'll see you on Friday next week at 10 a.m. for a